Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Clark, for having me here, and to your audience for tuning in and listening. Um, I I would say that the way that I would really begin is that I have always been interested in end of life and death and the great beyond. And I would say my most salient identity is my spirituality. And so from very early on, I was interested in the idea of transition. Transition has always fascinated me, literally as a little child. So I've always been really intuitive and tuned into the various frequencies that exist. And as such, I wasn't afraid of transition. It was intriguing to me. And I mean, I would write about, like in school as a young girl, my school projects would be about near-death experiences and that sort of thing. And so eventually, when I went to school, I found a program that allowed you to create your own degree. So I did a degree in thanatology, which is the study of death and dying. And then I went into hospice social work, and then I became a social worker and did hospice social work, and then I became a psychotherapist in private practice. And all along, I have always been tuned in intuitively to be able to see from a different perspective. And so even when I was younger, and I was also trained in body work. When I was younger and I was doing body work, when somebody would come in with a shoulder injury or something like that, I would always see what was really going on. I might see that this was an injury from a past life. And so this gave me a perspective of the individual that was maybe a little more inclusive. And so what happened in psychotherapy was that continued. And so with the presenting issue, perhaps somebody would come in with a generalized anxiety disorder, and I would see those symptoms for sure. But I would also see that what was emerging was perhaps prior wounding from past life that was coming up to come out. So eventually I shifted away from psychotherapy so that I could really focus on a more spiritual perspective, a more holistic lens to include the intuitive energy that was coming forward and help people really unlock what was coming up for them. So now I do more of an intuitive counseling. But the reason I'm beginning with the perspective of end of life and my draw to transition and death is because when I found the goddess Inanna in her mythology, what I first found was her story of the descent of Inanna, the myth of the descent of Inanna. And this is a story that is her most well-known myth. But in it, what happened was I saw so many aspects of myself, and it called me in. It made me feel like I was able to shift from feeling the challenges that I experienced in my life were in some way disempowering to all of a sudden feeling as though they were empowering me, and I was walking in initiation. And it really was connecting in with her and her mythology that I was able to fundamentally heal some of the experiences of trauma that I had, that I was then able to see through her mythology as initiations. And so I do go into the book about my own personal sort of the beginning of my initiation with my process. And Inanna, in the descent of Inanna, what happens is she hears a call to the underworld. So she's hearing a call to death. And I thought, wow, I've always heard a call to death. I have always been interested. So she hears a call to death. She is Queen of Heaven. She is the goddess of love and war, but she is also Queen of Heaven and Earth. And when she hears a call to death or to great below, it's her desire to make known the unknown, to understand and also become queen on some level of the underworld. So in this process, she descends to the underworld from which no one returns, and she comes to 7 gates before she can enter the underworld. And those gates are how I formulated my book, but they are also the stages of the initiatory process. So when I understood this, I began to see how my life was following that. The first gate that I came to really happened, and that sort of was the biggest catalyst, and that's what I share in the beginning of my book, of dealing with what emerged as really like complex post-traumatic stress disorder, where I experienced a major trauma of losing my mother to suicide, and a week later experiencing rape. And the two experiences led me to have this really complex experience of post-traumatic stress disorder, and it leveled me. And that really began, that was my descent into the underworld. And so as I connected deeper with Inanna's mythology, it really was, while I did do many other approaches to healing, it really was so much of connecting in with her and helping, using her ability to then rise, because that's the next part of the story for her, is she does transcend. She dies in the story, but she is reborn. And this beautiful, powerful experience revealed to me what can emerge from the descent. And I have used her guidance to rise myself. So that really is who I am, and why I wrote the book, even because I so would love to share what supported me with others, you know.